Welcome everybody to the 5th of February 2025 meeting of the Human Resources Committee. Can I just remind everybody to use their microphones when speaking, because this meeting is being webcast. Right, so let's move on to the first item on the agenda, which is the apologies. Do we have any apologies for absence?
We do. We have an apology from Councillor Deffley and an apology from Councillor Hollybon, who Councillor Buckmaster is substituting for.
Thank you very much. So item 2, minutes. So this is the minutes of the 20th of November meeting, which are pages 5 to 12 in the agenda pack. Our members, are there any comments on the minutes to begin with? Can I just check how many people were here? So there was actually only two of us present at that meeting who are here now, but that's okay, isn't it, for voting purposes? Yeah. Oh, 3, right. Oh, yes, sorry, 3. Okay, good, excellent. So are there any comments on those minutes? No comments. Okay, so can I have a proposer to approve those minutes? Councillor Swainson, thank you very much. And a seconder, Councillor Wilcox. All those in favour? Against? Abstentions? So that's carried. Thank you very much. And moving on to item 3, which is Chair's announcements. I don't really have anything to add to what's on the agenda at the moment. Obviously, we're looking at, there are a few items on the agenda. We'll be looking at pay policy, and we'll also be looking at the gender pay report, as well as our normal statistics of sickness and so on. So just thank you really to our officers, to Alex who's here, and to all of the other officers involved who've worked really hard over the past quarter just to keep things going and just keep everything on track. Okay, so moving on to item number 4, declarations of interest. Does anyone have any declarations of interest? No declarations of interest. Okay, moving on to item 5, which is Human Resources Quarter 3 statistics, which are pages 13 to 31 on the agenda pack. So can I hand over to Alex if you'd like to introduce yourself for the people at home.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm Alex Wanless, I'm the HR&OD Service Manager. So obviously presenting these reports today for us all. Yeah, so we've got the Human Resources Quarter 3 statistics. Again, this is the report that we present every committee, just to kind of keep track of HR metrics and to see how we're all performing. So I suppose the first one to talk about is we had an error with the pay role provider ZS, who had an issue with their reporting, so we couldn't get the sickness stats for quarter 2, and we've now received those because we've resolved the issues with the supplier. So we've got the sickness absence stats in there. Again, the trend is a little bit higher than quarter 1, and then again went up in quarter 2, then reduced slightly in quarter 3. This, I think, was mostly in the short-term sickness, and I suppose in our levels of detail we've got this kind of minor illness. So I think we can get too much further detail without going through individual reports, but kind of seem to be that kind of short-term illness, minor illnesses such as viruses. And speaking to staff members, I think there was a variant of COVID, a bit of norovirus going around. So again, are things we probably couldn't particularly avoid, but I suppose just a bit strange for the time of year was probably my only comments on that. In terms of short-term and long-term, we're at 40% short-term and 60% long-term. And again, I think this is due to long-term tends to be more chronic illnesses, and again, our demographics, certain times in life, people are more prone to the long-term illnesses. So that's kind of within leveling there. We actively manage long-term absences with our occupational health support. So whenever people trigger long-term sick, we make sure that we get occupational health to try and help them return in the best way possible and put in reasonable adjustments as much as we possibly can. And also in terms of identifying mental health provision, we're currently actively working with, today in fact, re-qualifying our mental health first aiders, and we've had officers go on a boot camp to make sure that they can kind of challenge our mental health provision and ensure we have mental health first aiders across the council and indeed Beam as well. So we've got mental health provision there to try and support all of our officers. In terms of recruitment and retention challenges, I suppose it's the same kind of story really. Planning environmental health are kind of the hardest to recruit due to national shortages, and again that's a problem across all councils, and I suppose all councillors are looking for the same people, so that provides the challenge. Again, we're reviewing our market force supplements for planning and legal over Q4 to make sure that we're able to retain and attract those hard to fill roles. We're finally launching our new applicant tracking system called TriPad. So we're having a slow recruitment freeze. I think it was the end of January, just to allow us to launch the new system and move new vacancies to that. So finally we'll be able to see the benefits of a new modern applicant tracking system and allow us to see the benefits of that. And again, there's quite a few vacancies, 44 unfilled roles. Again, that's budget-related holds, service reviews, pending documents. Again, we're looking at organisational development in the council, so that's holding some roles because managers want to hold off to reshape their service. We don't want to hire people and then the job changes dramatically or include redundancy. So that's where some of the holdings are. And again, the aforementioned difficult to recruit roles. Within learning development, I'm pleased to report we've currently got 5 staff completing apprenticeships. There's been a push for that. We have a level 3 in payroll in my team, and we have level 7, which is in planning team. So we're moving away from paying universities for masters and moving it over to level 7 apprenticeships. So we'll definitely be using those while they're available. I think the government are looking at reducing the level 7s shortly, but we'll definitely be making full advantage of them while they're available to us. Also within our mandatory training suite, we've added a preventing sexual harassment module. So that's again from the last meeting, we had the duty to prevent sexual harassment law come into place, and we've implemented mandatory training on the e-learning for all staff. And again, over Christmas, we were sending the message out to make sure people are aware of the provision and to be looking after everyone's safety over that time. We're also looking at to continue management training. So we're doing a manager essential boot camp for kind of team managers, like the basics of leadership and kind of core skills for those leaders. We're continuing on with management training for service managers and to really kind of support our managers be good leaders. And we're also looking at introducing a train the trainer program. So that's so our own officers can actually feel confident to share their own skills. We've got a lot of good experienced staff, so that's going to be opening up in the next quarter for staff to jump into. And then in terms of health and safety, again, we've got some more reporting, but again, that isn't because things are worse, it's because we're doing better at getting people to report things. So again, near misses have increased, but that was because people are reporting them when maybe they wouldn't have done before. And again, in health and safety, Peter's working on workplace safety audits and contractor performance monitoring. And he's also been involved with that first aid refresher provision within there. Again, he's told me there's no key actions to report in there for concern. So that's the introduction. Obviously, I welcome comments and questions.
Any comments or questions on the Councillor Swainston?
Thank you. I welcome the work that's gone into this. I'm afraid I'm going to have the same grumble that I've had ever since I joined this committee. We're not being provided with comparators, so we don't really know. I mean, yes, we can compare to last quarter, but in terms of industry standards, for want of a better word, or national trends, we're not really getting that. So I think it would be more helpful. I mean, I'm sure everybody here wants to support the council and council employees, but to do that, we really have to interrogate what's going on. From what I've looked at today, so because I was frustrated by that, I did have a look. And on one measure, we appear to be doing reasonably well, and on another, not so well. Because from sorry, what I've so what on the ONS, Office for National Statistics, the average days lost per worker in 2022 was 5.7. So in those terms, we're not doing, it seems to be quite reasonable. However, working hours lost seems to have been 2.6. I've written 2023 for that one, 2.6%. Whereas we've got quarter 2, 12.9, and quarter 3, 10.5. So, I mean, what I take from that, and I might have got it all wrong, but it seems to me that we have a lot of people, even if they don't take long off, we've got a lot of people taking time off. Do you think that's a fair assessment of what's happening?
Yes, I suppose to answer your first point, we have in Finistats finally kind of up and running. So that's the London Borough Council's started it, but now it's moving on to more councils. So ILGA, the like East of England Local Government Association are kind of providing that service for us, and it's a portal where we put all of our metrics in, and then once the other councils have done the same, we start to then get their data come back as well. So that's something that I can talk to the officers about increasing in there to put in there, so we can kind of give averages of what other councils of comparative size. It does obviously have counties and districts within that, so it's probably more relevant to look at districts. But that's finally kind of come to fruition. We spent a lot of time this month putting a lot of data into there, so then we're going to start getting that data back. But obviously, you relying on the other councils doing the same thing. So yeah, for next report, we can definitely get some kind of comparisons for you. Yeah, I think that the stats are getting a little bit high. I think the Office of National Statistics is quite a wide-ranging area, and some of the industries I've worked in, like in call centres, it's a lot higher. It's always going to be higher because it's the call centre. So I think local governments will be more relevant, and obviously we'll have to give you that information to check. I do agree. I think it's been a little bit higher. I think majority of that just seems to have been put down to minor illnesses, and something that I'm quite keen to do in the next quarter is spend some time with our line managers about like standards, basically like how to report things and to give us a bit more data, because it's only as good as the users, and the human's always the problem in every system and reporting. So that's something we're definitely going to be doing, is giving those managers, make sure they just know how to use the system and they're reporting it. I suppose to give you an example, in a past place I've worked at, we actually found like, why is I can't remember what it was now. It was like acute back pain, the highest reason for being off, but it was the first option on the drop down box. And it was busy managers just going, yeah, okay, I've done that. So we just need to make sure we've got that correct data and matrix and stats and things. So I'm not saying that happens here, but I just need to check a little bit more detail about why it's there. And again, speaking to officers, I think there was, a few viruses going around was probably one of the reasons for it, but we can delve in a little bit deeper, and then we can check against what's happening in other local authorities as well, so we can kind of get that comparison. But no, I agree, we can get that for you now.
Thank you, that'd be great.
No, my question,
Councillor Wilcox was next.
yeah, my question was basically the same, but Councillor Swainston put it far more eloquently than I could, so I'll take mine away.
Councillor Buckmaster.
Thank you. Yes, I was looking at the vacancies and appointments, and I noticed you've got 23 new starters, and obviously I have to be honest, I'm always very interested in planning because that's what I'm sort of involved in. So you had 5 new starters in planning and only 1 leaver. Knowing that the planning department really struggles with retaining staff, and as you said, it's one of the hardest ones to fill, that all councils struggle to fill planning positions. How many more vacancies have you got in planning that need filling?
I'd say, unfortunately, I'd have to respond via email to that one, because I don't know off the top of my head the current full vacancy list. But I can absolutely find out for you. But I do know it is a challenge. There's been a lot of effort. So I think it was very good that I think there's a particular manager that's been trying very hard to recruit and get the right team in place. not saying the other managers don't, but it's tough. But I think that's probably where that advantage has been. But I'm absolutely happy to respond to the committee afterwards and find information. Yeah.
Are there any other comments on the stats? And the minutes of the safety committee fall under this item. I think that's right. So just checking to see if there are any questions on those. I noticed that Beam is now going to be a member of that safety committee, which I think is a good thing. And there seems to have been an issue with Buntingford depot, which is being resolved through a performance management sort of process. Is that right?
Yes. So the so Beam, I have attended. So we actually had the safety committee today, and Peter chaired that. So that they've been attending, which is good because obviously it's a large site which has lots of health and safety issues. In terms of Buntingford, I think they did highlight some. It's probably around the cleaning contract and some cleanliness issues there. But Peter and the health and safety officer and the facilities service manager have shown the contractor management the issues, and they were very apologetic. So I think there should be some change there, and we're making sure that we're managing that contract. So again, if they've let us down, that's about the contract management and making sure that they've been held accountable for the job that we want to do. So that has been done. So that's good to see that resolved.
Thank you. Any Councillor Buckmaster?
Thank you. So, yes, I've just remembered I was reading it. You've had a lot of ignition of batteries and nitrous oxide canisters. Personally, I'm not actually aware of where we can dispose of those safely, and I'm wondering whether we ought to have something like a comms put out to actually inform people the safest way to dispose of batteries and things like that, so that we don't risk putting them in the waste lorries and the recycling centres. Is that something we could look into?
With the mute button there. I think that's something that I can speak to our health and safety officer to speak to the contractors about. I know I'm out of the district, but we have a special bag. We put them in on top of our bin and things like that. So I'll absolutely raise that with our health and safety officer contract.
Yes, thank you. Because I'm thinking, yes, if a post could go on Facebook or some, publicity, just so the general public know how they can dispose of them.
Yeah, I'd support that. I think it's not always easy to know especially there are kind of litter pickers who pick up those NO2 canisters, and then what do you do with them? You can't put them in the bin. So it is unfortunately they are around the district. So it'd be good to have some information on that. And batteries as well. Obviously they can be recycled. Some of them can be recycled in. I think anywhere that sells them has to offer some kind of recycling collection point. So that might be something just to highlight as well, because obviously the more recycling we can do, the better. Good. So any more comments on either of these? Councillor Swainston.
I wonder if we could ask if the same, I've not noticed them in shops, but I don't vape, so I probably wouldn't. But is that something we could, obviously we can't do it for the NOx canisters, but we could ask shops if shops could have recycling facilities for those, presumably.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what the regulations are, but I have heard that I know that Aldi has a box. I'm sure I've seen boxes elsewhere.
What, for vapes?
Not for
No,
vapes.
for vapes.
Oh,
Yeah,
vapes,
no,
no.
batteries they do, but I'm suggesting that.
For vapes, yes, that's a good point. We could find out about that maybe. I don't know if that's an HR issue, but
But it's health and safety, though.
it's
isn't it?
health and safety. That's right. Yes. How can we recycle vapes?
Yeah, I'll ask my health and safety officer just to see where the best yeah, it might go full to operations, I'd say, in terms of the actual waste contract itself. But I think, yeah, absolutely, I'm happy to pass that on to the relevant people from today. Yeah.
Okay, so any more comments on that? In that case, can I have a proposer to, sorry, just read the recommendations, to consider the Human Resources Management Report for Q3, October to December 2024, and provide any comments to the HR officer, stroke head of HR and OD regarding the content or formatting of the report. And I think we've commented on both of those things. So can I have a proposer? Yep, Councillor Connolly. And a second, Councillor Buckmaster. All those in favour? That's everybody. So that's carried. Thank you. So we're moving on now to item 6, which is the gender pay gap report, pages 32 to 42 on the agenda pack. So if I can hand over to Alex again.
Well, thank you, Chair. Yeah, so this is the annual gender pay gap report. So again, as a local authority, it's a statutory requirement for us to report on our gender pay gap. I think it's quite a positive report as an overall summary. The gender pay gap has reduced by, I suppose, 3% from 13 to 16, and the median pay gap from 9 down from 19. I suppose the reason cited in the report for the decrease is there's more men in lower pay quartiles than last year, and there's a slight increase of women in the higher pay quartiles, so obviously that's a natural change within that. Again, the male staff increased by 10 and the female staff decreased by 11, and we have more women in senior positions, but there's still a gender imbalance in the pay quartiles of the administrative and customer service roles. Again, I suppose the challenging is one of the things I suppose we've just been talking about the waste contract, but the waste and grounds maintenance contracts are outsourced. So again, they can be traditionally more male environments. So that's where I suppose we've got that little change in the gender there, and that's usually kind of slightly lower paid than the management. So we've got more managers and less kind of staff at a lower pay grade, which affects the reports. In terms of how to address it, so again, within the gender pay gap, we need to make sure that our mandatory EDI trainings are completed on our e-portals and really think about that within our training suite. And I know we do think about it whenever we're doing reports and changes, and especially from the HR side, we do really think about that impact. Our new ATS will give us the ability to put blind CVs in there, again, to help with the equality and to stop bias in recruitment. So that's something that we're going to be trialling when it goes live. So hopefully that will be kind of in action by April this year. And again, it's about increasing diversity in our recruitment panels and just really thinking about who's being the recruiter. So as the recruiting manager got somebody that can balance their views. Can also promote career progression for women via apprenticeships and training. Continue to celebrate and promote gender equality initiatives. So we held International Women's Day today. So again, it's something we should definitely be continuing to do. And then monitoring our gender representation across pay quartiles, and really think about whenever we're looking at staff and hiring, just how can we ensure we get a good balance across the mix of genders there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any comments or questions on the gender pay gap report? Councillor Buckmaster?
Sorry. I just wanted to talk about the question of the blind CVs. I mean, the last time I was on this committee was a couple of years ago, and we were talking about introducing it then, and I'm just surprised to see it still hasn't been introduced. I thought it had already been, implemented and was working.
Yes, I can answer that one. So we did have, or our current supplier that we're just moving away from, I think had promised it but couldn't deliver. So I think in terms of it was a feature that was promised, but the way that we had the last ATS system was we bought credits for like recruitment campaigns, and it was kind of a freebie system, and get what you pay for. That's probably quite a good adage for this one. So I think it wasn't where we wanted it to be. and I think it was kind of really failing at that point, and it was quite a lot of work for the officers to try and interpret, which obviously hinders everything and doesn't work. So I think it got switched off because it wasn't working as we wanted to. The new system is a lot more modern. Using not well, yeah, kind of new coding. I think there's a few bugs that they're working on, but generally I think it should be working. So we're really excited to try it, see how it works. I think it's quite hard to do because it has to kind of go through all of them. So yeah, we've got the new one starting very shortly.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Swainston.
Yeah, thanks. I welcome the report, and it's obvious that we are moving in the right direction. I'm afraid I'm going to have another moan about data and things. So, for a start, I think it would be helpful for non-specialists who might want to read this, if it said nearer the beginning what Q1 was, that you don't explain what the quartiles are until you've referred to all that. I say you, I don't know who actually report, but you know what I mean. So it's saying what the quartile is comes quite far down in the report. I think it would be better to have that explained at the beginning. And then again, we do have some stuff that I question what use it is for it. So when you get to, what page is it? On page 40, you've got the diagrams of the pay quartiles. I don't honestly think they're much use to it. I mean, when it says the percentages, what are they percentages of? Are they percentages of the number of staff who are in that quartile? Or is it percentage of the money that's paid out in quartile one? I couldn't see it specified anywhere what that was.
I think it's like the gender split within the range of money. So I'm not too sure where. I'd have to look into that, into the detail in the report. But it's the percentage of within the same pay bandings. What's the gender split for that? So don't quote me on this in terms of like, so if it's £50,000 plus, it would be where it would be. So like, if it was, if it was,
So it's just a percentage of the
yeah.
number of people
yes,
that are in
in the
those
total.
quartiles.
So yeah,
Okay.
if we had like our different gradings, say if the upper quartile was maybe like kind of senior manager, like a grade 11 to 13, it's like what percentage are male and female within that. And then again for the middle quarters and the lower pay, just to see where they split.
I'll be honest, I think it might be in here somewhere, but to my way of thinking, it would be a lot easier to understand to just have the numbers, 4 men and 3 women or whatever, rather than the percentages don't.
Yeah,
they might look pretty, but I don't think they're serving much use is what I'm getting at. So it's just making it more readily understandable. I mean, I don't know how other people feel about it, but
I think it's something where we'll definitely have the numbers because that's where the percentages come from. So I think for next year's report, we can look at how to lay it out. So we could definitely add the numbers and the percentages, and then I suppose that makes everyone happy, doesn't it? If we add both of them, that's absolutely fine. So yeah, I can. It's one of my HR officers takes the lead on writing this. So absolutely give her that feedback and implement that for next year. I think we will have them as well, so we can go back to you with those figures if you find them useful. We can send them over to the committee if you find it useful to see the numbers. That's fine.
yeah, I guess so. Thank you.
Councillor Wilcox.
Statistics isn't my strong point, so I'm the same when it comes to this data. And I always find it a bit strange because when you said that the flipping between a senior position being a female or a male is impacting the gender pay gap, and I kind of get confused then because I think, well, if there was 5 women in higher paid roles who still earn less than their male equivalent, would that skew it and say that we're doing better, even though we're not really doing better because they're still earning less?
I think we're in local government. We have pay grades and scales, which I think does really help with that. So if somebody was to have my role and they're a different gender to me, they would start on the same scale point and then it would progress as their tenure added. So it's kind of, there's not as much discretion. You can go higher than that for experience if it's a hard to fill role, but generally the rule is that you start at the bottom of the grade and you move up. So that kind of does stop us having actually, you know, Alex, you're a man, so I'm going to pay you another £5,000. That bias within there, which is kind of where this has come from in the past, and maybe local authorities are maybe better because they're a lot more transparent, but definitely in the private sector, I'm sure that does happen, or did happen maybe, and that's why this is a thing. So we're, yeah, the more, and it's that when you're looking at everything, if you've got more women in the authority on a lower pay grade, and then you've got quite a lot of males on a higher pay grade, that's kind of where they're seeing where the split is. So when you've got more women in higher paid roles, that's where the pay gap can reduce because we've got more women at a senior level. So it does kind of affect the stats. Yeah, again, statistics is quite confusing, but that's kind of where it is. So I think in terms of actual, if you take away from the statistics and what the reason for this is to make sure we've got people who are in all of the elements of our role. So we're not like heavy in a certain gender in a certain area, because that's what skews the pay gap. So again, that's where I suppose the comments around normal, like, you know, blue collar workers, a lot of blue collar work traditionally can be male, and they'll be on a lower pay grade than senior managers, so it can kind of skew it. And I think we do have a lot more female identifying people in the council, and they do administrative roles and things like that, so that can make the pay balances go, especially if you have an all male senior management suite. That will really move your pay gap around. So it's kind of monitoring that and making sure that we make sure it's fair and we promote opportunities for both genders to make sure we've got that balance is kind of what the whole idea behind the reports are, to make sure we're doing that in action. Does that help, Councillor Wilcock, a little bit? Yeah.
Yes, I think so. Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Connolly.
Thank you. I agree with Councillor Swainston that the numbers would help as well as the percentages, because in some cases actually the numbers might be quite low, and so it's not actually that helpful. My other concern is that, are we in danger of creating problems where they don't exist? Because we're saying that, I think this is what they're saying, that the admin jobs are mostly carried out by women, but that high percentage was caused essentially by the grounds maintenance and waste guys, who are mostly men, and also that a lot of that is then contracted out. So if you put that all back in the bag, actually the balance would probably be okay. So, you know, we're creating an artificial problem, and my concern there is that we start trying to recruit men, no offence, into a job that is traditionally women, and actually doing women out of a job. So, you know, and I don't know if there's a danger of that, especially when women might be looking for easier part-time roles while they're bringing up families. There's all sorts of different reasons for why we've got more women in those sorts of roles. So I don't know. It's just an observation, really.
Yeah, I agree. It would be interesting to know, like, if you put that in the balance, to see where the gap is. And I think that's why we always comment on that, because I think that will mean we'll never have it perfect. You know, I don't think we ever will have anything, you know, 50-50. It's an aspiration. And I think, yeah, that you're right with some of the reasons why. But I suppose, yeah, the world's changing and different genders look at different things. So, yeah, I think it's interesting to see. But I think, I suppose, from our report, that the main element really is, it's making sure that we've got people, you know, both genders have good opportunities to progress as well, and yeah, not taking away jobs from anybody. So yeah, it's again, it's been fair and equitable is basically the main goal.
Thank you. Any more comments? Councillor Swainston.
Sorry, me again. I thought that you use the Hay job evaluation method. Does that sort of try and iron out? So I can't remember who it was, but one council got in big trouble, didn't they? And lost lots of money because the evaluation of the value of jobs is very skewed. So does this Hay job evaluation level? So for instance, well, I think it's oh, having a blank. One of the big online people, they value warehouse workers much higher than what jobs that are traditionally female. So does that evaluation method iron out those sort of gender differences? Is that the point of the scale?
Yeah, I remember. I think it was, yeah, there was, yeah, supermarkets and things were in there in trouble with it. Yeah, and that's quite an interesting case from a HR person's perspective. Yeah, the Hay evaluation scheme looks at different elements of the role and what responsibilities it has, and there's kind of grading and points to see where it is. It might be, do you have line manager responsibilities? Do you have decision making responsibilities in different areas? I'm not personally Hay trained at the moment. It's but so the officers that are tell me that it really does try and eliminate that. And that's the reason for having a job evaluation scheme, because you can say that this many points equates to this grade and responsibilities. So that again, that should take out that element of it. So Ellie's just messaged me. Ellie's watching at home. She said she'll send you an explanation of how we use Hay. But yeah, it is again to make it fair and consistent, and that the jobs that are in there. And then again, when we're looking at people's roles and when they change, they'll get evaluated against that system. So we've got every role in the council has been evaluated at that scale. So we really know exactly where they would be in any kind of changes in people's job roles. Are you starting to do something different? That's where you can show actually if you're now managing a team when you didn't before. We can show where that sits, and that's where the council's pay scales are aligned. So you've been on a certain pay scale. So it is very structured, and again helps to try and alleviate that disparity. Whereas when you don't have that system and it's maybe a manager saying, I've got this much budget and I want to hire these people, that's probably more in the private sector, but that's where you end up with it being unfair, or actually my friend wants a job, all that kind of bias and favoritism and stuff can creep in. So this is where we're very strict on terms of what we say. And then you have a pay grade, which has different scale points, which is where you would sit within it. And as I said, usually you'll start at the first pay grade and you got through increments with your service, but for occasionally if someone's got demonstrable experience, they might go in a different level and they have to get authorization from head of service level and HR to make sure that that's fair and they can evidence that experience and maybe past earnings, just to make sure we're getting that person, but it's quite rare.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
Any more comments on that? Just thinking about Councillor Swainston's earlier point about comparative statistics. I suppose it's actually quite difficult to do comparative statistics if you have across different councils for something like this, depending on whether their contracts are in or out of house. But it would be interesting to know how we were doing on that.
Yeah, I think every district probably does different things and has shared services and contracts and things. I think it'd be quite hard, but you can do a benchmark across all the councils. Again, this is something that every council will report on, so you can look at other councils' websites and see the report. But yeah, everyone's got a slightly different. So you'd have to find an exact copy of East Herts to probably find some comparative. But you can see a rough comparison of where people sit.
Thank you. Any further comments? Okay, so the recommendations are to note the Gender Pay Gap Report 2024 and to consider the action plan 25 to 26, adding further suggestions where appropriate. And I think we've done both of those things. Could I have a proposer? Councillor Wilcox, and a seconder, Councillor Swainston. All those in favour? That's everybody, so that's carried. Thank you very much. And moving on to what I think is the last item, almost the last item on the agenda, the pay policy statement. So if I can hand over to you again, Alex, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so this is the pay policy statement again for 25-26. So again, this is a statutory requirement that we post this on our website every year. This needs to be approved by full council. So this will be going to full council on the 26th of February. So this report again is supposed for comment and consideration by the committee before it goes to full council. Again, we're quite bound in local government in terms of our pay, as we've been discussing. So it covers our chief officer pay, but looks at and actually quite nicely links in with the gender pay gap, I suppose, of our lowest pay of employees compared to our highest paid employee, and the fair pay comparison across the workforce. In terms of our chief executive pay, we have a fixed box salary, and again that's in its own negotiations with their unions. And then we have the National Pay Award, which is National Joint Council, which is negotiated between the employers and the different unions represented within local government. Again, it's discussing our, I suppose, pay awards from this year. So this year, the pay award, again, the negotiations start around now in February time. They would be implemented from 1st of April. I think this year, the negotiations ended in October, and we were able to work very hard in our payroll team. So really commend my payroll manager and our payroll apprentice and HR administrators, because we got our pay award back pay paid in November's pay, which I think was very welcome for staff before Christmas. As I say, we're still pending negotiations. So this year's pay award obviously is aiming for April, but I think in reality might be, again, probably October, November time. This again looks at all of our pay, so it publishes our pay policy and kind of gives us all the rates of the scale points within there and the updates for that. So it's open to comments.
Okay, any comments or questions on this pay policy statement? Councillor Swains.
Originally, I was just going to say I think it's very clear, very well set out. Yeah, I think it's just as it should be. I have just had another thought though, going back to what we've talked about earlier. It might be helpful if on the grades, they could be related to the quartiles that we've been talking about in the gender pay gap.
Okay, so kind of what sort of roles would be doing that? Yeah, because we've got quite a lot of different roles at different grades. I suppose we do have a list of roles in which the grades are, so we can kind of give that. Yeah, is that kind of what you kind of job
It's just-
titles, or is it more the hay evaluation?
It's really the quartiles were to do with pay, the gender pay. So if those quartiles of
the
four
quartiles. Sorry, I thought you said core tasks. Sorry.
No,
That's my
quartile. Sorry.
quartiles. Okay,
We're
yeah,
just
no,
linked
that's
to
good.
those
Yeah.
grades. But
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
yeah, I'm very happy with it. Thank you.
Councillor Buckmaster.
Sorry, this is just a really minor point, but actually on page 47, it actually says pay policy statement 24 to 25 and February 2024. Should that be 25 to 26 and February 25?
Yes, it should be. But yeah, thank you.
Just it ought to be corrected before we vote on
Yeah,
it.
no, actually. Cool. Yeah, I shall find that and amend that. I think it's something that we use the core thing every year, so you have to try and update, but it's quite a long time. So I appreciate your eye there. We'll definitely check that one and update it.
Any further comments? Councillor Wilcock.
This goes back to me and statistics again. In the table 5.12 and the number of employees in the grade FTE, there's a little star there as if there should be a note next to it. I can't see any note. Maybe I'm just misreading this. Why was it 0.27 employees? Shouldn't they all be integers? I don't quite understand.
Yeah, I think it's that's somebody that does a very specific part-time hour. So it'll be the percentage of hours they do against the 37-hour week. So it'll just, be an exact time with that one. I can probably check what their contract is, but yeah, that's what they're down as a.
Any further comments or questions, clarifications? Okay, everyone happy?
I've just noticed that the recommendation needs to be worded slightly differently. We've got on there that the pay policy statement 25-26 be approved. I believe the recommendation should say that the pay policy statement 25-26 be recommended for approval by council. Yeah.
Okay, if there aren't any further comments, and thank you for all the work on this and on the other reports as well, and pass those on to any colleagues who are involved. If we can, so the recommendations are that the policy statement 2025-26 be recommended for approval by council. So can I have a proposer, please? Councillor Connolly, and a seconder, Councillor Buckmaster. All those in favour? And that's everybody. So that's carried. So the final item is urgent items. There are no urgent items, and so that concludes tonight's meeting at 7:45. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Thanks for all of that.